This is a TalkStation original podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Paper Boys podcast. I'm JJ Smith.
And I'm Zach Nally.
We are reporters with the Carteret County News-Times. We're joined as always by our producer Ross Caraway. We're doing girls basketball previews this week. We begin with West Carteret's Lindsey Powell. We are joined in studio by the tallest coach in the county?
Maybe, yeah.
Oh, she's got that going for her.
Taller than John Humphrey.
I think she's the tallest coach.
Well, my husband's the tallest coach in the county because he's
head
coaching
coach.
down at East Carteret.
Head coach. Head varsity basketball.
Put that in your office, the tallest coach in the county.
Yeah, I got that going for me.
You were 6 years on, took 2 years off for kids. Mm-hmm. Now this is your 6th year, so 12 years. You've been doing this a while.
I have been doing it for a while and playing a whole lot longer, so, yep.
Does it feel like 12 years?
It all blends together, but it's been a really good ride so far.
Last year they go 12-12. They go 7-3. Zach was there for the night when they won a conference championship when they didn't think they were going to win a conference championship.
I really wish I could have remembered to pull out a camera or something and take a video. It was the Swansboro was playing White Oak.
The last place team in the conference.
Yeah, and so Swansboro had the lead in the conference, and they needed to lose to White Oak to give a tie, and they lost. And it was senior night. And I go over to a couple of the girls onto the side, and I'm like, hey, by the way, Swansboro has just lost to White, or they're losing to White Oak. And they freak out, and everyone in the audiences, or everyone in the stands are looking at us, and I realized I had made a mistake and should have just waited at the very end. But no, it was great. It was awesome. Tie for a conference lead is not a bad way to end the season.
Yeah, that was the second year in a row as well that we won the conference, and we've not done that at West Carteret for a while. So it was a really good moment for those girls.
Yeah, when you won the year before, that was the first one since 2015.
Yep.
So
And that was 10-0.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was a little more impressive.
And this being a new conference, getting the first 2 titles is pretty good.
Yeah, very pleased.
Tell us about this year's team. Who have you lost and who do you bring back?
So we only lost one senior and then had one that transferred. So we lost 2 players, 2 players that saw meaningful minutes, and then we've picked up a couple of players we've got a freshman and we've got actually a senior and a junior who have been soccer players and used to play basketball but sort of got derailed by COVID and decided this year that this was the year they were going to get back into basketball. So we've picked up a senior and a junior in that range.
Who are those girls?
Aubrey McCall is one of them and Kate Siebert is the other. And they are, so far, they're just along for the ride and they're doing a great job. So awesome. A lot of fun.
And lost Mara Huber as their senior and Tiana Frazier as a transfer.
Yep.
Both those in the rotation, girls you counted on last year.
Yeah, certainly girls that got a lot of minutes. Mara with kind of our second post player, and then Tiana shooting guard, kind of all-purpose guard. So, yeah.
She led your team in points per game, 11.2, 3.9 rebounds per game, 3 steals. Obviously, it's a nice addition for East Carteret. But you do bring back a host of girls who have been playing together for some time. Sam Huber, Skylar Setzer, Ella Graham, Mia Snyder. These are all juniors.
Oh, I forgot we lost Mia.
Oh, you did?
Her family left and they went to Germany.
Oh, okay.
So that one kind of escapes me when I talk about leaving because she didn't, they just moved out of
Still, you bring back a trio of sophomores that have been playing together for now 3 years. So they've got some chemistry working for them in that way.
Yeah, we've got, as young as we are, with only one senior, we're pretty well stocked when it comes to experience because they've actually been playing together since their freshman year at the varsity level. So even though we don't have a lot of senior leadership, and we've got a lot of leadership, and we've got kids with a lot of experience. So that's been pretty exciting to watch. And the competitiveness at practice has really ramped up. So they're working hard and trying to improve.
Yeah, it's always a risk when you bring a class in and you think, should I leave them on JV or should I bring them up to varsity so that by the time they get to this junior, senior stage, they've played at that level for so much, they've only continued to grow. And a lot of times the jump from sophomore to junior can be pretty big. Do you expect some improvement out of these girls coming into this year?
Yeah, we want to not only win the conference again, but we also want to be able to compete outside of this part of the state. And last year that was something that we didn't do very well. When we left this part of the state, we were not very competitive. And that's where a lot of our focus and a lot of our goals are, is not only to continue to be successful in this part of the state, but also to be able to leave and be competitive off of this little part of the country.
What a weird cycle you're in. 2 years in a row with one senior.
Yeah, how about it? And the boys last year had 10 seniors.
Right.
So it is what it is.
Yeah, that's weird. And Tiana being, she's like the stat person when you look at, Max Preps, and like Zach said, she led y'all in points, and people look at that and be, that's kind of the the big thing. But, I remember watching y'all's games last year. And Mara, I always thought she was very undervalued as far as from the outside because she's not putting up big numbers, but really versatile, brought a lot of defense, a lot of rebounding, which is something y'all always need.
Yeah, she brought a lot of intensity as well. And Tiana she did a good job for us, but 11 points is not something that we can't overcome when it comes to if everybody steps up and gets two more points here, 3 more points there, then that kind of covers for that. So it's definitely an adjustment we're having to make, but I think it's an adjustment that we can make.
Last year's team, of the top 7 scorers, 4 were sophomores and 2 were freshmen.
Well, that's all I had last year. I had 1 junior, 1 senior, and then the rest of them were sophomores and freshmen. So this year they're juniors and sophomores, and I'm hoping they're just going to pick up where they left off and keep improving.
Almost a JV team last year, playing a varsity schedule, right?
Yeah, we did the math last year, and the JV's average age was 14 years old, and our varsity's average age was 14 and a half years old. So it was a young team. Very young team.
That's great. Yeah. JV also had a good year, even though you had all this young talent on the varsity. JV was 14-4, 5-1 in conference. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming you brought up some decent talent from there.
We brought up a couple of players. Maddie Steidel is one of them. We didn't actually have that many to bring up because the Snyders left the country, and then we had 2 girls that were foreign exchange students, and we had another girl that was 2 girls that were juniors last year that decided not to play their senior year. So the JV team actually didn't end up having that many players coming back to it, but it looks like it's going to be a pretty strong team as well. So as from a program standpoint, it looks like we're building a good program at West Carteret.
Amazing this continuity you're able to develop here for about a 3 or 4 year run.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, last season you guys started off with a 6-game losing streak. Some adversity there. You talked about being able to compete with some teams that aren't directly in this sort of 3-county area. You finished by going 8-2 in the regular season. When you look ahead to this year's conference, it's got to be somewhat favorable. Croatan loses 5 of its top 8 players. Swansboro loses its top 2 scorers. Richlands loses 3 of its top 6. You got 6 of 9 players coming back for White Oak, but otherwise, it looks like the conference is set up for you to make that other run for the 3rd straight.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping to build on. I mean, you never know who's going to step up or who moves into the county or any of those types of things, but we're hoping to build on on what we started last year with the program and move forward with that and win for a 3rd time in a row. And you guys would have to be able to do the math on that. I don't know how long it's been since West Carteret has gotten 3 years in a row. It's probably been decades. I mean, it was so long since we actually won one.
To tell us what it's like being a coach of a team in middle of the season. You're going through a 6-game slide.
It's a tough one. It's a tough sell because these kids are just in general, students and kids this age are very much what's happening now, and it's hard to get them to really buy into what is the big picture. And it's a hard sell. It can be a hard sell, but last year they were able to kind of come together. It was over Christmas break we started to gel. The year before that, the same thing. We really, even though we went 10-0 in the conference, but before that we were not winning all of our games, and it was over Christmas where they really decided to buy into what we were trying to get them to do, and we saw a big change.
I do want to take it back real quick to some of the individual players that you've got. Skylar, Sam, and Ella. Those seem to be the 3 big ones coming back.
Yeah.
What about them makes them good players for you in your system and what they do?
All of them are really well. Sam in particular is really good at defense. They're all pretty good defensive players, and that is where we get a lot of our points is on by using our defense. We turn people over quite a bit at a pretty high clip. We don't often have really high scoring games. So that defense is really important to us. Sky is really coming along as a point guard. She's always been a good, talented player, a good guard, but she's coming along as a point guard, really directing the team. But Ella has always been able to do that pretty well from the back, and you don't really count on post players to be able to do that, but she's done it pretty well all along. So they're working together really well to make sure that there's a good continuity and a good flow for offense and defense.
I do love when you have a 3-player. There'll be more that'll contribute, but a 3-player core, and especially when the 3 are playing, somewhat of a guard, forward, big sort of a triangle here where you've got a lot of options as a coach to sort of play with what your team can do. And do you think your team will still be a transition, a high defense, get steals and make a run to the basket, or you think you'll slow the game down a little bit this year?
Well, the game has changed a little bit with the new rules for fouls.
Okay.
May not be to our advantage. But, we still got to play really intense defense, and we got to move the ball up the floor quickly. And Sam, of course, is really our key asset in that. But they're all pretty good at making sure they're doing their job on defense so that we can get those transition points.
Yeah, Lindsey mentioned they use defense to turn into offense. Sam Huber with 6.5 steals a game, which is just a ridiculous number. And Skylar Setzer with 3.5. So getting 10 steals out of those two girls, you'll take that most nights, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's where we got a lot of our points. So
yeah. And high school, even boys coaches talk about it a lot. If we can get steals, turn those into easy layups, we'll take that all night long, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Those are points that we can count on. When the offense isn't always clicking, if the defense clicks, we can still get some buckets.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, of course, them, getting older a year, getting wiser a year, some of those turnovers will also probably drop off a little bit as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the bottom of the conference is interesting to me because Zach rattled off, what the conference looks like coming back. You got Swansboro, who you all tied with in the conference. They lose their top two scorers, so you think, who knows what they'll look like. Croatan lost a lot, but they've got some young players. Richland loses 3 of their top 6, including the top scorer. But the bottom of the conference, White Oak has, of their top 9 scorers, 6 were underclassmen. Dixon brings back basically their top 8 scorers. And White Oak proved last year, last game of the year, they can pretty much beat anybody.
Well, and if you go back and look at last year's games, a lot of them were close between everybody. It was not a conference where there were a lot of top dogs and low dog. Everybody was sort of in this strip. And, obviously teams like Dixon and White Oak did not win a lot. But
be interesting to see if White Oak can
and that's how public school goes in general, right? Like it's kind of cyclical. And White Oak was in a rebuilding year, but they worked hard and they got better as the season went on. And if they worked hard over the summer, then they're going to be a different team. So it's always hard to tell what you're going to be coming up against. We got to do our job and not worry too much about who we're playing against, but worry what we're doing when we're playing on the court.
So the goals this year are 3-peat.
Let's hope.
Want to make a little bit of a run in the playoffs. So it made third round a year ago, right? 2 years ago, actually.
Yeah, and that was a team that probably they won more than they should have won by playing together, right? And that's what we want to do this year is win some games we shouldn't win as opposed to losing games we should. So.
Well, Lindsey, we'll see you out there soon enough. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm Ryan Kelly.
I'm Lynn Schultz.
And we're the hosts of the Senior Moment podcast.
Each week we bring you conversations with experts right here in our community about the common and uncommon challenges facing our aging population and caregivers.
We discuss the challenges of caring for a loved one with dementia, as well as the importance of health planning, family history, and much more.
Join us every week for Senior Moment, streaming now on Spotify, YouTube, and at CarolinaCoastOnline.com.
Hi, folks. Bob Lowry here, and this episode of the Paper Boys podcast is brought to you by the Carteret County Speedway.
We're joined now by East Carteret coach Ryan Sacoco. Thanks for being with us, man.
Absolutely. Glad to be.
This is what Ryan has done in his 2 years at East Carteret. 39-6 overall record and 19-1 in conference. Not too shabby. What do you think?
We got good players.
So modest. Only losses last year in the regular season were to South Central and Hoggard. That's a 4A and a 3A. Those two teams' combined records were 47-9, and those two teams were 25-1 in conference. So pretty good year last year.
They helped elevate us too. Being able to go on the road and play in that South Central tournament and going against a team like that, those two teams really elevated our speed and prepared us for the rest of the season for sure. And it's a eye-opener to go play very, very talented schools like that. It was fun.
Went 22-3 overall, 10-0 in conference. I guess if we have to put a downer on the season, went out in the first round of the playoffs. I know that's not what y'all were expecting.
Big downer. That's our focus this year. We want to make a run. We definitely want to win conference. That's always a big goal of ours. Definitely win the conference. But we want to make a run. We want to make some noise in the postseason. That's kind of been our bugaboo for the last 2 years, and that's all we talk about.
Tell us about this year's team. Who'd you lose and who'd you bring back?
Well, the losses are definitely big. We lost a great senior class with Sydney Robertson and Haley Grady and Jemiah. Sydney being, like I said, I'm still trying to compile the stats, but I think she's the all-time leading three-point shooter in East Carteret, and she did it in 2 years. And Haley Grady, her progress was amazing. She went from averaging 2-3 points a game, and then in conference last year, she was one of the ones that got paid off by that Christmas tournament because she came back in the second half of the year and averaged double figures. So her development was unbelievable, and then Jemiah just being a spark plug out there on defense and rebounding. So, but man, I tell you, I think I've probably got the best two players in the county and in the conference with Tanzania and Kinliana, and I expect nothing but great things from them. Tanzania is unbelievable. She's got an unbelievable leadership mentality, and she's come in and picked up right where she left off. And Kinliana, I think she's progressed in her own right. This is, I think, I've seen in the past 6 months or so since last season ended, her biggest step that I've seen. So I'm really excited to see those guys play. I've got 3 other seniors, and we've got a pretty odd dynamic makeup of a team. We've got 5 seniors and then 10 underclassmen.
Yeah, with Tanzania in the mix, we were talking about before the episode, one of the things we like to end these episodes, these previews with is Player of the Year conversations, who might win it, and that's going to be a short conversation, I think, if all things go the way they're supposed to with Tanzania in the mix. But with her being so good, especially the last 2 years, last year, how do you get better as a player from junior to senior? Have you seen anything tangible in terms of her growing her game or improving anything specific?
Well, tangible, I don't know. How do you improve on 25 points a game? And all the hardware that she gets. What I've seen from her this year is a next-level leadership. She is helping her team in ways that I've not seen from her before all the time. She takes her time. She makes herself available to the freshmen and the sophomores, which is only going to – it benefits them, but it benefits her as well, because if her teammates are there to support her, then she's going to benefit too. So, it's just all around. Even if her numbers aren't 25 and 10 like they were last year, she's the ultimate teammate.
Tell us about some of the girls that are going to have to step in and fill those shoes of the girls you mentioned, like Sydney Robertson and Haley Grady and Jemiah Shelton.
Yeah, it's going to have to come from somewhere. Kinliana, you want to talk about Player of the Year? Throw Kinliana's name in that hat too. From what I've seen in the preseason here, she's taken her game to the next level, and I cannot wait to see how that pans out. So, and it might be an interesting race between those two. But yeah, Sarah Walker is a senior that's going to step up. Got to have her step up. Estella Lewis is a returner. She played a lot as a freshman. She's going to have to step up. She's kind of a true post player, which we haven't had in the past year or two. So she's going to come in and hopefully take her game to the next level. Some freshmen coming in, Jazz Gadet as a freshman, rising returning sophomores like Eva Watson, Riley Watson. Both of those have taken their game to the next level. And our newcomer senior, Tiana Frazier, we're hoping that she comes in and can replicate some of the things that she was able to do at West.
Hold on, we're going to take a step back here, Ryan. You mentioned Tiana Frazier is over there at East Carteret now. This is not something that we knew coming into this.
Well, breaking news. Tiana Frazier wears number 42 for East Carteret.
How about that?
Nice little transfer pickup.
You talk about replacing some of the three-point shooting there that you lost with Sydney. She's a nice little shooter herself.
Hey, yeah, we're glad to have her, man. I told her I wish I had her for more than just 1 year. She's been an excellent addition to our team. She's been a positive, enthusiastic. I can't wait to see how she plays too.
How many underclassmen do you had? You said that's like a big chunk of your roster.
Yeah, I got 10 freshmen and sophomores.
Wow, and compare that to your first couple of years. I imagine that's a huge difference because it seems like it's been hard to fill out that roster.
Yeah, it has, man. It's been our goal and our mission here the last couple of years to build a JV program. We were a player or two away from being able to do it. We tried to work the numbers. We had, I think, 17 come out, and I ended up having to let a few go. And we tried to work it, man. We tried to work because they can flex. They can play 5 quarters in a day. And we looked at it from every direction trying to get it to make it work with the JV squad. We just were about a player or two away. So, yeah, I pretty much have a JV team plus 5 seniors right now.
Break down the conference for us. How do you think it's going to go based on what people lost and what people are bringing back?
I have no idea. I know we lost Southside lost their player of the year with Kanaya, which, she's an unbelievable player. And I think they made a coaching change. So it's tough to call on them. I know they had some really talented underclassmen. It's going to be a wait and see on them. Northside, I know they bring back a couple of their really good players, and they're always tough. The one that I've got my eye on right now is Pamlico. April's such a great coach, and I know that they've been down the last 2 or so years, and I just don't expect them to stay down below their standard. I expect them to come out and have a real good season. So we're ready. We're ready for it. It's always fun to have a great conference. We really want really good competition because that prepares for the postseason.
Recap those Southside games for us a little bit. Those 3 times you matched up with them last year, and every one was crazier than the next.
It seemed to be, yeah. We kept running into one another. That championship game was pretty wild, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think at some point in maybe not all 3 of the games, but they had us down by double figures in the second half of both of those games to finish the season. But hey, man, they're tough. They're tough. They're athletic. They're tough. And Kanaya, she can do pretty much anything she wants on the court, and we just have to contain her. Yeah. I wish her luck in the future. I hope she has a great college career. I'm really not sure what she's up to, but man, what a heck of a high school player she was. It's going to be interesting.
All 3 of those games was like a different movie. One of them, y'all had a 20-point lead in the second half. Yep. It shrunk to 2. Yep. You held on to win by 5. Another one, you were down 10 with 5 minutes to go. You pulled off a 3-point win. And the other one, you had 2 points in the first quarter, but scored 45 in the second half and won by 6.
Yeah. That's basketball, man. We talk about it all the time. There's going to be runs. And our vibe, man, we just say we never give up. Never give up. We don't care if there's – I tell them my philosophy is if we're down by 10 with 5 seconds to go, I'm trying to figure out a way to score 11 points. We take every possession as it comes. This team never surprises me with comebacks. They've done it time after time. Whether it's South Side or North Side had us last year down, I think, and West has had us down a couple of times, and even in the South Side game last year, man, we pulled all the way back to I think 6 points by the end of the third quarter, and then foul trouble got us. So when this team gets down, they don't let it get to them. They just, hey, next play, and we're going to come back and try to win this play in one point at a time. So
Ryan and the rest of the coaches in the Coastal Plains Conference probably threw a little celebration party when Kanaya O'Neal from Southside graduated. Just to give you a little idea, she was the East-West All-Star. She went on to Fayetteville State. In the one game versus East Carteret, she had 47 points and 16 rebounds. That put her over 2,000 career points and 1,000 career rebounds. That made her one of just 13 girls in state history to hit both of those milestones. When you were going up against her a couple of times in the season and the conference tournament, you had to have a game plan, right?
Yeah, get the ball to Tanzania. Tanzania, look, you want to talk about how good Kanaya was, and she was. When Tanzania played against Kanaya, Tanzania was on a different level too.
Yeah.
She took her game, and I think she had 38 in the finals. She had 45 or 47 one time last year. Tanzania is just elevated by competition. Even playing against Hoggard and South Central last year were a couple of her best games. So, yeah, our game plan was let the players play and let their instincts take over, and we did. And we were the beneficiary of those results because, man, that was all them.
We'll wrap up with this question. What would be a round that you think the girls would be happy with getting to? Obviously, you said the playoffs has kind of been the bugaboo the last few years. What do you think these girls are pointing to?
If I told you what we wrote on the board, people might think it's crazy. Our goals are as big as they can be.
Yeah.
We want to win them all. That's our goal. We start every year as undefeated, and right now our goal's still intact. So that's how we're looking at it. But we're going to take it one game at a time. We're going to alter, we're going to change some things that we do. We're going to change some things about the things we talk about and our mentality going into it. I want to get beyond the second round. I'll tell you that. And I know that's what my team wants too. So we're going to go beyond 2.
Awesome.
That's what I'll say. Beyond 2.
Well, Ryan, we and everybody else in the county will see you out on the court soon enough. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, JJ.
I'm Pastor Carl Zarowski.
I'm Pastor Brian Lassiter.
And I'm Pastor Bill Clear. You know, right now, more than ever, faith matters.
Every Sunday here on the radio, a few local pastors discuss faith in the news and how it relates to you.
We explore local, state, and national issues through the lens of faith.
We look at the role of Christians in our world and ask, should the faithful be doing more?
Join us Sunday mornings at 8 for Faith Matters, only on the Talk Station.
Hi, folks. Bob Lowry here, and this episode of the Paper Boys Podcast is brought to you by the Carteret County Speedway.
We're joined now by Croatan coach Andrew Gurley. Is this year 14, Andrew?
I believe so.
Wow.
Yes, it is.
Starting to get long in the tooth there.
Yeah, I know it. Hard to believe it's been that long.
You're the veteran. Lindsey's the 12, so you just barely got her beat. And then, of course, you just got Ryan over at East. This is your 3, so you're the wily old veteran of the bunch.
Yep. Hard to believe. You're 14.
Speaking of wily veteran, Andrew's also the wily veteran of the Paper Boys podcast. This is episode number 21 for us, and he's been on here 3 times. He's the all-time leading champ.
Yep. Appreciate you guys having me back.
Well, tell us about this year's team. Who'd you lose and who you bringing back?
Yeah, so last year, we graduated 6 seniors off of last year's team. Throughout the year, I'd say a good bit of that group obviously saw some quality time. We had a few starters in that group as well. We lost Ginger Hayden, Maddie Rogers, Jill Chapman, just to name a few. And you look outside of that group last year, we were pretty young. I mean, obviously having 6 seniors, that's a good veteran group. But other than those 6, we were pretty young. And so obviously this year going into it, we knew we were going to still be, somewhat young, but have some experience too, because a lot of girls that are there with us this year, we kind of had to put them to the test last year. So I think that's going to pay off for us. But got 13 girls total on varsity. We got 4 seniors this year, 3 juniors. So we're still fairly young. We're kind of 50-50, upperclassmen and underclassmen. But I really enjoy this group. I know the season is still young, but they've done a great job. Every day just kind of learning and just trying to build that team chemistry. That's a lot of what the first month is about, just kind of learning what kind of team you have. So I'm excited about this group. Our seniors are Kaylin Ames, Sadie Johnson, Sophia Mendelia, and Sophia. This is kind of her second year playing for us. She came out as a freshman and then didn't play the last 2 years. So we're tickled to death to have her back. And then Marissa Cowley is our 4th senior. So those 4 are really going to help us, and they just do a great job from a leadership standpoint. Neely McMahon and Landry Clifton are 2 of they're sophomores now, but they are 2 of our returning starters. So they started as freshmen last year. Hannah Buchanan is a sophomore that's back. She started some last year. And we have a good mixture of each grade level. And I like how they play together so far. Obviously, we're just kind of learning the ropes and just getting ready for Friday. But I tell you, I've been very pleased so far. Not any distractions with this group. I mean, they come in every day ready to work. They're kind of like, okay, what do you got for us today? What are we doing? It's going to be exciting group to watch, I think.
Yeah, you talked about that leadership that some of those seniors are bringing in this year, and that's certainly needed when you lose someone like Ginger Hayden, who had a lot of leadership skills last year. She was definitely the head of the team. And it's funny, when you look at those, you had 4 girls last year who scored more than 5 points per game, and you had sort of that opposite ends of the spectrum. 2 of those were seniors and 2 of those were freshmen. Right. Ginger Hayden, 8.4 points per game, 7.3 rebounds a game, and then you lose Kate Wilson, who had about 5.5 points per game and 2.5 rebounds per game. And but you do bring back these 2 freshmen who are part of a group of, I think, 4 that were playing on the varsity team last year.
Yeah.
Neely McMahon, Landry Clifton. These girls, have they taken a leap from last year to this year?
They definitely have. They worked hard this summer and this off season to get better. And, speaking of Ginger and Kate, those two girls, they did so many things that don't show up on a stat sheet, things that you don't see in a box score. And I think Neely and Landry are going to kind of pick up kind of where those girls left off, especially Landry. I mean, we started to see that last year during her freshman year. She took a couple charges, looking for opportunities to box out. She might not necessarily get the rebound, but she boxed out to where, somebody else from our team got the rebound. Just little stuff like that. Her and Neely both showed that potential last year. And this year, they're sophomores. Typical teams, they're going to be the ones that are kind of in the shadows. But, I think them being on varsity last year is going to pay off for them big time. I mean, I've seen this work and not work so much in the past, where sometimes it kind of hampers an athlete playing on varsity as a freshman. It kind of puts them behind because, maybe that wasn't the best experience. But I feel like for them too, it was definitely a great experience, and it's something that you can just tell they've learned so much. I mean, we scrimmaged last night, and there were certain situations that Neely was put in. And last year would have gone totally different. Her kind of being a year older, having that year of experience, you could just tell, I've seen this before. I need to do this. And Landry, too, I saw that with both of them. So I think that's going to be a big difference. So, yeah, I've definitely seen them starting to kind of come into their own. I think the future is definitely bright for both of them.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to pay off.
I don't want to put unnecessary pressure on those girls, but the last time this program put freshmen on the floor at varsity level, that 2020 graduating class, they had 3 straight 20-win seasons, and that was a pretty special time to be part of the Croatan girls basketball program. And you give those girls a chance to grow and to learn what level of play is expected at that varsity stage from an early on, and then hopefully they can grow even more.
Yeah, it's hard, as a coach, like I don't really bring up that class because I don't want to put any pressure on them. But obviously, as us coaches, we know that group that we had, and kind of, I remember, Allie and Kelly and their freshman year. At one point, we were 1-11.
Yeah.
Fast forward a year later, that exact time we were 11-1, and so. Obviously, as coaches, we've seen that, and that's something that we've had work for us in the past. But yeah, I'm not going to mention that with those girls and put pressure there, but we definitely know that it's a possibility, and I don't know if it'll be that good of a turnaround. It was like, wow, because we expected a turnaround with that group, but we didn't expect it to happen that fast. We were thinking junior year, definitely senior year. And, hey, maybe it takes a little longer with this group. I don't know. But I think it's definitely there. I mean, the potential is there for sure. So it's just a matter of, when are we going to be able to piece it together with this group. So I know what's going to happen. We just got to continue and take it day in and day out.
Cougars go 11-14 overall, 6-4 in the conference last year. Talk about a competitive conference. Swansboro and West Carteret tied for the championship at 7-3. Y'all are just a game back at 6-4. Then Richland's just a game back, and y'all are 5-5. Felt like every night last year in the Coastal Conference, anybody could beat anybody.
Yeah, even the two teams you didn't mention, Dixon and White Oak. White Oak got better as the year went on. Dixon got better. They're both teams are well coached, and man, I tell you what, even this year, looking ahead. And it's hard to do because we got such a long non-conference season. But, I think kind of our slate through the conference was a perfect example. We go 5-0 the first time through the conference. We're undefeated. We're at the halfway mark of the conference season, and we're 5-0, and, we're sitting pretty. And next thing you know, we lose 4 straight. And it's like, man. And, this year could be more the same. It's definitely going to be wide open again. I think Swansboro West. They're going to be competitive. Richlands is going to be White Oak and Dixon have pretty much got a lot of their girls back. So yeah, it's going to be one of those where there's not going to be any gimmies. I mean, and that's okay, because you want that competitive. You want to play competitive basketball game in and game out in January and February, because that's going to get you ready for playoffs. I've definitely been in those leagues where it wasn't like that, and I felt like we kind of lost. We lost that, because when you go play a team that you know is battle tested, it's tough. I mean, they have the advantage. So I think this conference will definitely we're gonna definitely test each other. So I think it's going to be wide open again this year.
Speaking of
kind of about the team that's clicking, at the right time, that's going to make the difference.
Speaking of competitive, y'all played 7 games last year that were decided by 7 points or less. You got 3 and 4 in those games. Your losses were by 3, 4, 5, and 7. Your wins were 2, 3, and 4. 2 of those went to overtime. I imagine your spec this year might be the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be my question, is how many of those were in overtime. I thought it was more than 2, but it seemed like it was more than 2. But I'll tell you, they all felt like overtime games. No, I mean, and that's something, too, that I was mentioning with those younger girls that are now a year older. They've kind of, they were a part of that, and they were right there with it in those moments. And so it's one of those situations. This year is like, hey, before it happens, let's talk about this, and hey, this, you can reference, things that happened last year to help build for this year. And, situational awareness is going to be something big with this group. We pretty much have everything installed right now. I mean, offensively, defensively, inbounds plays, we've got all that in. Now it's going to be game planning, scouting reports, and building off of situations like that. Hey, 30 seconds left, white teams down 2, black teams up 2, white ball, full court inbounds, here we go. So situations that we ran into last year, we're going to be able to simulate those now with this group, because it's not about if we're going to get in those situations this year, it's about when. I think we definitely are going to see those same situations, this year like we did last year.
All right, Coach, we're going to see you out there soon enough. Thank you for joining us.
All right, guys, I appreciate it.
I'm Ryan Kelly.
I'm Lynn Schultz.
And we're the hosts of the Senior Moment Podcast.
Each week, we bring you conversations with experts right here in our community about the common and uncommon challenges facing our aging population and caregivers.
We discuss the challenges of caring for a loved one with dementia, as well as the importance of health planning, family history, and much more.
Join us every week for Senior Moment, streaming now on Spotify, YouTube, and at CarolinaCoastOnline.com.
Hi, folks. Bob Lowry here, and this episode of the Paper Boys Podcast is brought to you by the Carteret County Speedway.
All right, now we get to the fun part where we talk about predictions for record.
Those go so well.
Conference record, conference standing, and player of the year. So we'll start with records, and we'll start with the team that was the best in the county last year. East Carteret goes 22-3 overall, 9-1 in conference. They did lose in the first round of the playoffs. So we look at their schedule this year, and me and you both roll through their max preps, and it's hard to find an L.
Yeah, I mean, you looked at it, and last year they played some bigger programs. Some big teams.
South Central and Hoggard were their only 2 regular season losses, and that's a 3A and a 4A who combined to lose like 5 games all year long.
And they replaced those this year with
Epiphany and Swansboro.
Yeah, that's a little different.
Yeah.
Especially considering
no offense to Epiphany and Swansboro.
Not at all. Epiphany's
right.
what it
but
is.
You're not Hoggard and South Central.
No.
Right.
So I'm going to go ahead and just go on a limb out here, and I'm going to say 23-0.
Whoa, Nelly.
I don't see why not. Look, you graduate Sydney Robertson,
right,
but you bring in T. Frazier from West Carteret.
Right.
It's almost like you haven't lost that much.
Right. It feels right into those shoes.
Right into it.
Right.
So Tanzania's when you're older, when you're better.
Right.
I think they're a little hungry after last year's early exit.
Right. Yeah, you think there's some fire in the belly.
I think they come in and they roll. JJ feels differently because he was in East Carteret grad.
Well, I can't say somebody's going to go undefeated. I just can't do it. So I'm going to put them at 21-2.
Okay.
I'm going to have them 9-1 in conference. I'm going to have them splitting with Northside.
Okay.
And then the other loss, maybe Swansboro hands them a loss or something.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I just can't.
Okay.
Maybe West. Maybe they split with West.
Sure.
Rivalry game. You never know what's going to happen.
You never know.
At West Carteret Tuesday night. Although
East-West basketball games are a lot like the Mullet Bucket, where you can kind of toss the records out.
That's right. So I'm going to say 21-2, 9-1. You're saying 23-0, 10-0.
Yeah, so I'm bullish on both the boys and the girls conference hopes. I got them both going 10-0. So
okay.
That's just, I can't help it.
All right, we'll go to West, who was what last year?
12-12
okay.
overall, 7-3 in the conference. They tied with Swansboro for their second straight conference title. We talked to Lindsey earlier, and we can't think of when the last time. It's been a while since that program has won 3 in a row.
Yeah, we're going to have to do some deep digging
we're gonna
into
have to find out.
Microfilm of the News Times because Max Preps ain't going to show it.
No, certainly not. That only goes back so far. And I don't know about you. I've got them going 15-7 overall, and I've got them going 8-2 and tying for the conference
with
the Cougars.
Oh, Croatan.
Listen, we'll get to that.
An all-county championship.
We'll get to that.
I like
we'll
that.
Get to that.
We are spot on, 15-7.
Yeah.
Overall, I've got them 7-3 again. I'm going to split them with Cougars. I'm going to split them with Swansboro, and
Swansboro.
I'm bullish also on. Oh no, I'm bad. Croatan, yeah, Swansboro, and White Oak. That's my 3 L's. 7-3, and I'm going to have them at 7-3. I'm going to go ahead and spoiler alert, have Croatan at 7-3 and White Oak at 7-3 with a 3-way split.
Okay.
For the championship. I'm very big on the Vikings. I don't know why. I think Vikings were second to last year.
Well, they got hot at the end, and people,
and it was like a JV team.
Look, when there's a program that doesn't do very well until the very end of one year, coaches seem to want to hype them a little bit coming into the next season. No, they're turning it around. They're doing good.
So from 12-12 to 15-7, that's going to be a huge jump.
I mean,
that's a 5-game bump.
It is, but it's the kind of jump you expect from a group that was mostly sophomores last year.
They lose T. Frazier and they lose Mara Huber.
That's right.
One's a scorer, one's kind of an everything player.
Right. But they bring back their core.
They bring back 80%, 85, 90% of the team.
I mean, Sam Huber, Skylar Setzer, Ella Graham. I mean, T. Frazier led them last year. I don't want to throw.
But that was a very socialist team.
It was. It was all over the place, and I think that when you have a young group that's coming up together, to be able to keep them together is what matters.
Right. They've got a freshman point guard. They're excited about Pavey, and so I think they're due for a bump.
I think so too.
Yeah. Plus, I don't think last year they go on a 6-game losing streak. I don't think they'll do that this year.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Now, if you think 12-12 to 15-7 is a big jump, I've got a bigger jump for you.
Okay.
I've got the Cougars who went 11-14 overall last year. They went 6-4 in the conference. They were leading that conference.
They were 5-0
after an overtime win against Swansboro. Big free throws from Ginger Hayden. We miss you already. Then they go on a huge skid, and they finish, 3rd or 4th in that conference. I've got them going 17-5 this year.
Wow. Talk about a jump. I got them 16-6, so you're just 1 game better.
Yeah, and part of that, I think that's the conference loss probably. I've got them going 8-2.
Splitting with West.
Yeah, and you got them
7-3.
Yeah, that's right.
That's probably the difference.
Right. Well, I had them splitting with West, and I think with Swansboro as well. You have.
I got the split with White Oak.
Yeah,
I got everybody split.
Yeah.
And they got Neely, a freshman.
Neely McMahon.
Well, she was a freshman last year.
Yeah, her and Landry Clifton are part of a. There's actually 4 of these freshmen.
Right.
Now, Neely and Landry were the two starters last year.
Right.
Yeah.
And you expect a big jump from freshman to sophomore.
You do. Yeah. And you could see definitely last year there were times when this wasn't middle school basketball anymore, and that was tough, know.
Is there any bigger jump in high school to be playing 12 and 13-year-olds, and the next year you might be playing somebody who's 18 years old? Literally.
I mean, the speed of play, the shooting ability, it's huge. That team does lose, 2 of their top 4 scorers, Ginger Hayden, Kate Wilson, but I think that if you look at their non-conference schedule, it's not tough.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a good thing,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say this conference is extremely tough. I would just say there's a lot of parity in it.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like the Coastal. Well, I've got a 3-way split, so that shows you what I think of how deep it is, I guess you'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I do want to just bring up those 4 freshmen. The others were Hannah Buchanan and Maddie Sutton. Maddie Sutton was a star for the Girls Lacrosse State Championship team in the spring. So just to throw that out there.
So now let's talk a little Player of the Year.
Player of the Year.
That's going to be a short conversation. In our previews in the Carteret County News Times, both Lindsey Powell, the West Carteret basketball coach, and Ryan Sacoco, the East Carteret coach, talk about how they want to make some runs in the playoffs. They're tired of East lost in the first round last year after losing 2 regular season games. That's a punch in the face.
Yeah.
West lost in the first round. They had gone to the 3rd the year before. So they were kind of hyped up after that, I think.
That's true. That's true.
And so these teams want to make some runs. So what do we think playoffs-wise?
I think at the 3A level is very difficult.
Man, that's tough.
I don't think either of those teams.
You could play a South Central in the second round.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I don't. I wouldn't be surprised to see both of them out in the first round, out in the second round. East at the 2A level, it's a little different.
Right.
They got a senior. They got 2 seniors.
Right.
Is it 3? Kiliana, the senior. So
Tanzania,
3 seniors
and
at the time.
Frazier, yeah.
And you've got Croatan and West, which are still led by some youngsters.
Almost underclassmen, heavily dominated.
Yeah. So I think East is in a different position. Experience, the hunger.
Right.
The 2A.
And if they get a nice bracket, I mean, they figured they had a good one last year. They had 2 losses. You figure they had a really high seed, South Lenoir. But, I was looking at last year, the second round, South Lenoir, who beat them, went on to get obliterated by Fairmont.
Yeah, that's
so
what
even
it
if
is.
East would have won that game, I don't know if they would. I mean, they beat South Lenoir. Fairmont did, I think, 60-19 or something.
It really depends on where you land.
Man,
and
that seeding in the bracket. So maybe next year they could get beat in the second round, or they could make a nice little run.
But throw playoffs aside for a second, because I know that's a big deal. But when you get out of this county, sometimes it can be a challenge.
Well, that's what Howell was talking about.
Yeah, that's their goal, is to be better than just this area. But if these 3 teams end 23-0, 17-5, 15-7, you think they'll count these as successful seasons?
I don't know if since Croatan's been on the scene, if we'd ever have a year like that. We'd have to do some research.
2 of those teams were at or below 500 last year.
Yeah.
To have all 3 have finished winning records, I mean, we were sitting here talking about it before. I think it's possible we could have all 6 basketball teams end up with winning records this year.
Wow.
That is not something we get all the time.
I wonder if that has ever happened.
Oh, I'm sure it's yeah. A couple years ago, I think we had a night. Well,
you got to remember, Croatan boys have not had a lot of winning seasons.
God, you know what?
Yeah.
So the year with Will Sutton was the head coach. They went 8-5 that COVID year. That may have been.
How about non-COVID years?
Okay, well,
yeah. I don't know if we've had all 6 finish above 500.
Then you're throwing out some
have to do
regional finals.
Yeah, we'll have to do some research on that.
Yeah.
But you're right. It looks like a really at least above average good year.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Player of the Year, because when we talked about it for the boys, we saw it as a 5-man race.
Yeah.
Between 2 at Croatan, 2 at East, 1 at West. It's a little different on the girls' side.
Secretariat. It's
there's pretty much
one horse race.
Yeah, there is one person in mind when I think of Player of the Year for the girls' side.
Tanzania Locklear.
That's it.
Barring an ankle roll or something injury wise, you could go ahead and give her the trophy.
I thought it was funny. Griffey mentioned something, and he was talking about the attitudes and the mentality last week about Shamel Baker and Charles Matheka. When you walk into a gym, you might not be able to see right away that these guys are the one, because when the game starts and they turn it on, here it comes. Tanzania, no. If I walk into a gym and I just see her a little bit, that's the one.
Yeah, the alpha.
She's her.
Uh-huh.
And I think she's gonna be big this year.
Well, let's imagine a scenario. We wish her no ill will. For whatever reason, she doesn't play this season.
Sure.
Let's just say a reason.
Okay.
Who is the player of the year in the county?
Outside of the front runner, leading
she's abducted by an alien.
Okay. Yeah, I think then it becomes another situation where it's like a 5-person race.
Like the boys things, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're looking at her teammates, Frazier,
Kenliana
Dixon.
Yeah.
I think you're probably looking at 2 girls at each school.
Right. Sam Huber.
And Skylar Setzer at West Carteret, and then the 2 sophomores, Neely and Landry at Croatan.
Yeah.
And then again, like we talked about last week, a lot of this depends on how well these teams perform.
Right.
If Croatan and West tie for that conference championship, they're going to play to see who gets the higher seed in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Who wins that game? Maybe that
tournament.
play. Sure.
Yeah. Whereas this East without Tanzania, if they can play really well and still do well, you're like, wow, Kiliana put them on her back and
100%.
carry them.
Yeah.
But if they go in the tank, you're like, well, that kind of negates anybody from East Carteret winning.
Let's just say you had to, based on what you've seen last year, who stands out for you? Give me 2 girls that you would be keeping a close eye on in terms of how they look on the court and what kind of stats they're putting up.
I think Sam Huber is probably going to be like I can see her putting up like Blair Pierce numbers.
I agree. She's not going to score 18 points a game.
Blair Pierce was like 2015. Is that
right,
her era?
Right, exactly.
Where I think her points were like 9 a game.
Yeah, but you're going to get rebounds. You're going to get assists.
Rebounds.
You're going to get steals.
She had like 4 assists. She had like 7 steals. She almost
all
had like,
over the place.
She had a quadruple double, didn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then flirted with it another time.
So
I can see Sam Huber.
There are certain
like
people
that.
when you're out there shooting these games with your camera, they just they just fill the lens
The
every
camera
night.
loves them.
Yeah, and Sam is one of those people.
Just because she's everywhere.
Yeah.
Defense, offense. Yeah, I can see her having a very Blair Pierce like
I'm going to go ahead and agree with you. And after looking at all those girls and the roles they play on their team, with a season like this where there might be more parity, I think the ability to do a lot across the board more than just score points is going to be a role player.
Yeah, and outside of Tanzania, if I had to put money on it, I don't know if we'll have another player in the county average double figures.
No, you know what? You could be right. You could be right.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody comes in except T. Frazier, who did average double figures last year.
That's right.
So it may be a more balanced player if that is the scenario that comes in.
All right, that's our discussion of predictions and player of the year. We did it with boys last week. We did it with girls. We in my column in the News Times a few weeks ago, I recounted our football predictions and how those were okay. They weren't anything special. So we'll see if we do any better with basketball.
I'm Pastor Carl Zarowski.
I'm Pastor Brian Lassiter.
And I'm Pastor Bill Clear. You know, right now, more than ever, faith matters.
Every Sunday here on the radio, a few local pastors discuss faith in the news and how it relates to you.
We explore local, state, and national issues through the lens of faith.
We look at the role of Christians in our world and ask, should the faithful be doing more?
Join us Sunday mornings at 8 for Faith Matters only on the Talk Station.